How's it going, folks? This is Mike, and I'd like to do a very brief commentary on a film that I saw last night. It's called The Witch, a New England Folktale, and hopefully this is playing somewhere near you. So if you're a fan of horror films, especially films that are big on atmosphere and not so big on violence, then this is something you might want to check out, okay? The Witch. Written and directed by a guy named Robert Eggers, and this was his first film that he directed. I have to be, it was very impressive and very atmospheric. So it takes place in the 17th century in New England, and it's in the Puritan civilization. And at the beginning of the film, there's a family. We never know their last names, but the father and mother of the family, William and Catherine, and their four children, they're being excommunicated from this community, this Puritan community, which is an enclosed community, and it's called a plantation, for something called prideful conceit, which I guess the elders of the community, they've decided that these people just don't fit in by the way they think about religion or about authority. It's not really explained terribly well. So these people, they have to leave. They have a teenage daughter named Thomason, a 12-year-old, maybe 11 or 12-year-old boy named Caleb, and then they have twins that are a little bit younger, a boy and a girl, Mercy and Jonas. And they just take off on their wagon with all their possessions, and they end up in this kind of big field area, which is next to a very dense wooded area, and that's where they decide they're going to build their new lives. So the film picks up a few months later, and they have a house, they have a barn, and the mother, Catherine, has given birth to a new son. So they've got their crops out, they've got some animals, and right away things start to happen. And I'm not going to give away any surprises of the film because they're very important surprises. And if any of you do decide to see this, I don't want you to have anything given away before you go. So it's necessary to keep in mind that during this time in American history, there was the hysteria of witchcraft among these Puritan communities. And it was very easy for people to believe that if bad things started happening if someone got sick or something happened to the crops or something very unexplained started happening with nature, that it was because of a witch, a woman who was in league with the devil. So that was very easy for people to start believing that and accuse members of their families, other people in the community, and religious hysteria could spread and damage people very quickly. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's going to be happening in this movie. But there's a lot more. And the thing about it is that it's very much a cerebral film. You learn a lot about the interior feelings and thinkings of especially the father and the mother of the family and their relationships with each other, their relationships with God, how they view their children, how the children view each other and the parents. It's really very well done. But beyond that, there are a lot of other things that end up happening, and the viewer is left wondering how much of this is hysteria, how much of this is real, how much is some kind of crazy imagination running wild. But all I can say is that this is a very unusual horror film, and I'm one that is not that crazy about modern horror films. I tend to like the older ones back in the 30s to maybe the early 60s. When they get to the point where they were just, hack and slash, I don't really like them that much. This was something very different. I'm not saying there was no violence in it. There was, or there is, but it doesn't concentrate on violence. It's a very thoughtful film. And my only complaint about the film is that they're doing this dialect from that time and place. I think they're trying to be as authentic as they possibly could be with the way people would have spoken English in that time and place. And it's very hard for me to understand a lot of what they're saying. And compounded by the fact that a lot of it is spoken very quietly and very quickly. So there were a lot of details from the script that I just didn't get. It didn't spoil the story. I still got the idea of the movement of the story, but I didn't catch everything that people were saying. So that was kind of a stumbling block. But still, it did not spoil the film. It's still a beautiful film. For a film that relies as much on imagery as it does dialogue, The story moved forward very well. So no, not a big complaint, but it was something. Maybe other people won't have that kind of problem that I did with picking up all the language. And it could also be that the theater wasn't playing the movie loud enough where you could hear everything. I don't know. It's possible. This film had a very low budget, about $3.5 million, very low for this time of movie making. And so far, from what I read online, it has already pulled in around 16.7 million. So it's been a big hit. Won an award or a couple of awards at Sundance. Was filmed in Canada, which is interesting. And I don't know any of the actors. I never heard of any of these people. Maybe some of you have. The young girl Thomason, who ends up being pretty much the central character, is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, and the father is played by Ralph Ineson, and the mother by Kate Dickie. Now, Kate Dickie seems to have a very long. These are all, I think they're all British players. I know that the mother and father were. Um, Kate Dickie seems to have a very long filmography and a lot of television, and Anya Taylor-Joy just seems to be starting out. Ralph Ineson has been in a few things, and it's funny because this guy, he looked like, and to me he sounded like, or a lot like Alan Rickman. That's who he reminded me of in this film. So that was kind of interesting too. So all I can say is that The Witch, I took a chance on it, not really knowing what to expect. I'd heard people say that it's supposed to be the definitive horror film of all time. I don't know if I go that far, but it is definitely worth checking out, especially for people who like slow burn horror films and are not that always looking for violence in films, looking for something else. I think it will surprise you. So if anybody has seen it, please let me know, and I would like to hear what you think. Okay? So let me say goodbye. Comments are welcome.